How did Jussie Smollett go from Hollywood star to headline scandal, and what can his collapse teach the rest of us? Jussie went from rising Hollywood star to headline sensation almost overnight. This video breaks down the real factors behind his fall from grace, far more complex than most people think. We'll break down his story, from his meteoric rise to the allegations that he staged a hate crime to the swift backlash that followed in Hollywood. Stick around until the end for the one brutal takeaway everyone needs to hear. At the height of his fame, Jussie seemed unstoppable until everything changed in a way no one saw coming. Born in 1982 to a family deeply rooted in activism, he grew up in an environment where social justice, artistic expression, and community awareness were part of everyday life. His parents, both actively engaged in civil rights issues, instilled in their children a sense of purpose and responsibility from an early age. Surrounded by 6 siblings, many of whom also pursued the arts, he developed an early knack for performing. By the time he stepped in front of a camera as a child actor, it was clear he had both natural talent and the work ethic to match. His early career included small but steady roles in films like The Mighty Ducks and North, showcasing a young actor with notable charisma, even in supporting parts. But his true breakthrough didn't arrive until years later. After a period away from mainstream Hollywood, he re-emerged with a maturity that made him stand out. That second wave of opportunity culminated in the role that would define his career, Jamal Lyon on Fox's hit series Empire. Empire was an immediate cultural phenomenon, and his portrayal of Jamal, a gifted singer navigating family power struggles and societal pressures, became one of the show's emotional anchors. His soulful performances and on-screen vulnerability resonated with viewers, earning him widespread praise. The combination of acting skill, musical talent, and authenticity turned him into more than just a character on a TV show. It made him a mainstream figure with rapidly growing star power. With this increased visibility came expanding influence. He used his platform to amplify causes he cared about, particularly LGBTQ+ rights, racial justice, and social equality. He positioned himself not only as an entertainer, but also as an activist, often speaking passionately about marginalized communities. His public persona, charming, articulate, talented, and outspoken, made him a frequent guest on talk shows, red carpets, and music stages. Hollywood embraced him as both a performer and a voice for progress. By the mid-2010s, he was living a version of the modern celebrity dream, critically praised, socially relevant, and culturally impactful. He had the rare combination of artistic credibility and mass appeal. For many rising actors, this was the peak they spent a lifetime chasing. That's where the tension of Jussie's story begins. At the height of his visibility, influence, and opportunity, the question emerged: how does someone at the peak of fame throw it all away? Stick around, we're just getting started. You'll soon know the answer to that question in a moment. Behind the cameras, behind the fame, and behind the carefully crafted public persona, pressure was building in ways few people realized. To understand what led to the crime Jussie was later convicted of, filing a false police report, according to a 2021 jury verdict, you have to look at the environment he was operating in. Hollywood is a place of constant competition, where rising stars are expected not just to perform, but to stay relevant in an industry that moves at high speed. For many actors, the pressure to maintain public visibility can be relentless. As Empire soared and its cast became household names, insiders later described an atmosphere where attention was currency, and every headline, good or bad, had career-shaping power. He was no exception. Reports at the time suggested he felt the weight of that environment acutely. As Empire entered later seasons, various media outlets cited unnamed insiders claiming he worried about maintaining his prominence in a show filled with breakout characters. Whether these accounts fully capture his mindset is impossible to verify, but they reflected a broader narrative. The desire for continued relevance can become a driving force in a celebrity's life. There were also publicly discussed indicators that, in hindsight, some observers pointed to as red flags. He often leaned heavily into social media to amplify not just his activism, but his brand. He appeared comfortable using PR moments to keep attention on his work, something common in the entertainment industry. But, according to prosecutors, part of a pattern they argued at trial. In addition, several outlets reported that he was unhappy with his Empire salary and felt he wasn't being valued at the level of his co-stars. These reports remain contested, but they were widely circulated at the time and shaped public understanding of the case. Prosecutors later contended that this combination of pressures, professional competition, a craving for visibility, and dissatisfaction with his status contributed to the decisions that led to the staged attack. He and his legal team firmly denied these claims, maintaining his innocence throughout, but the jury ultimately accepted the prosecution's narrative. Regardless of the exact emotional or psychological motivations, one thing is clear: he was living inside a system where relevance had to be constantly earned, and where the boundary between personal identity and public image could easily blur. The growing tension around his career, the whispers of discontent, and the high-stakes pressure of fame created a volatile mix. And then came the night that would destroy everything. Don't go anywhere. Something you wouldn't want to miss is brewing. It began with a headline that shook the country: an alleged hate-fueled attack in the dead of winter, targeting one of Hollywood's rising stars. In January 2019, news broke that Jussie had reported being assaulted in Chicago in what he claimed was a racially and homophobically motivated attack. According to his account, two masked men approached him late at night, hurled slurs, poured a chemical substance on him, and placed a rope around his neck. Within hours, the story spread nationwide. Celebrities, politicians, media outlets, and fans responded with an outpouring of support. The incident appeared to embody the cultural tensions of the moment, and global sympathy surged in his direction. For many, his story was not just shocking, it was heartbreaking. But as investigators dug deeper, the narrative began to fracture. The timeline of events raised questions. Surveillance cameras dotted the neighborhood, yet key moments of the alleged attack were missing from the footage. Police publicly stated the evidence wasn't lining up with the initial claims, and inconsistencies began to emerge. What started as a sympathetic investigation soon became a puzzle filled with holes. As detectives tried to reconstruct the night, the lack of supporting evidence cast doubt on the story that initially captivated the world. Then came the turning point, one that flipped the case upside down. Chicago police announced they had identified two brothers, Abimbola and Olabinjo Osundairo, as persons of interest. After being questioned, the brothers alleged they had been paid to help stage the incident. Investigators recovered a $3,500 check connected to them, which prosecutors later argued was compensation for participating in a rehearsed attack. The brothers claimed they had even practiced the events with Jussie beforehand. Jussie firmly denied the allegations, but the investigation rapidly shifted direction. Within weeks, the case had transformed from a suspected hate crime into an accusation of a staged hoax. A grand jury indicted Jussie on multiple counts of disorderly conduct for filing a false police report. Although charges were briefly dropped, they were later reinstated, and in 2021 a jury found him guilty on 5 counts, Throughout the legal proceedings, he maintained his innocence, but the courtroom outcome added a dramatic and devastating chapter to an already turbulent saga. While the case was already shocking, what happened next made it 10 times worse. Keep watching. What happened next is one of the best parts of this narrative. The moment the investigation turned, the fall from grace was swift, loud, and unlike anything Hollywood had seen in years. Once Chicago police announced they believed the alleged hate crime had been staged, the tone of the entire case shifted dramatically. What had begun with sympathy now transformed into frustration and anger. During a series of blunt, highly publicized press conferences, police officials criticized the alleged deception and the resources spent investigating the report. Their statements ignited a wave of public outrage, with many feeling betrayed by a story they had initially embraced. The media, which had once amplified Jussie's account, now dissected every detail with intense scrutiny. Hollywood's reaction was equally seismic. Empire, the show that had catapulted him to stardom, quickly began distancing itself from the controversy. Producers announced his character would be removed from the final episodes of the season, and scripts were rapidly rewritten to eliminate Jamal Lyon from key storylines. Behind the scenes, reports indicate uncertainty and tension. Cast members were asked to stay silent, writers scrambled to adjust arcs, and the once beloved star became a liability overnight. Fans who had celebrated his work posted messages of disappointment, confusion, and anger. Social media, once a place where he had thrived, turned into a relentless storm of backlash. The legal consequences only intensified the downfall. He was arrested, charged with multiple counts of disorderly conduct for filing a false police report, and later faced a highly publicized trial. Although initial charges were briefly dropped in 2019, a special prosecutor revived the case, leading to a 2021 trial in which a jury found him guilty on 5 counts. The judge sentenced him to jail time, probation, and community service. He continued to maintain his innocence, and his legal team filed appeals, keeping the case alive long after the headlines faded. But even beyond the courtroom, the damage to his image was staggering. His reputation collapsed in real time. Memes flooded the internet. Late-night hosts dedicated nightly monologues to the scandal. The allegation of staging a hate crime, a topic of profound sensitivity, left a permanent stain on how the industry viewed him. In Hollywood, where reputation often matters just as much as talent, he became a symbol of caution, controversy, and lost credibility. The entertainment world moved on without Jussie. Roles disappeared. Opportunities vanished. Public trust evaporated. Even years later, the scandal continues to overshadow every conversation about his career. His entire career, built over decades, collapsed in a matter of days. You'll want to know what he tried to do next, trust me. In the years after the scandal, Jussie entered a strange limbo, caught between attempts at redemption and an industry that had quietly moved on without him. In the immediate aftermath of his conviction for filing a false police report, he made several efforts to rebuild his public image. He released statements maintaining his innocence, framing the case as a misunderstanding or an injustice, depending on the interview. His legal team filed multiple appeals challenging the verdict, attempting to overturn or reduce the consequences he faced. He also appeared in occasional interviews, some calm, some emotional, where he insisted he had not orchestrated the alleged attack and expressed frustration at how the narrative had unfolded. These efforts, however, struggled to gain traction in a media environment that had already formed its own conclusions. Meanwhile, Hollywood responded in a way that was subtle but unmistakable. Although no formal blacklist was ever declared, the industry's silence spoke volumes. Casting calls stopped coming. Endorsement opportunities vanished. Projects he once hoped to lead dissolved before they began. Even independent or low-budget productions, where controversial figures sometimes find second chances, kept their distance. For a performer who had once held significant cultural influence, the absence of a comeback plan was telling. In an industry built on reinvention, very few seemed willing to risk the backlash of associating with him. Public perception remained equally unforgiving. For many people, the case represented more than a celebrity scandal. It touched sensitive cultural and political nerves. Those who initially felt sympathy later felt manipulated. Those who doubted the early narrative felt vindicated. The emotional swing fueled long-lasting anger. Comment sections, social media threads, and online discussions repeatedly circled back to the same themes: trust, credibility, and the seriousness of falsely reporting a hate crime. Even years later, these conversations seldom faded. Why are people still angry today? The answer often comes down to the symbolism the case carried. To many, his actions, according to the jury's verdict, were not just personal mistakes. They were seen as actions that could weaken public trust in real victims of hate crimes. That idea continues to drive the lingering resentment surrounding his name. The court case was about one individual, but the cultural reaction was about something larger. Yet even now, people misunderstand the true reason behind his downfall. It wasn't only the crime he was found guilty of. It was the collision of timing, public emotion, and the fragile relationship between celebrity and credibility. He fell at a moment when society was deeply polarized, when conversations about identity and justice were especially charged. The incident didn't unfold in a vacuum. It unfolded on a national stage where everything was magnified. Today, Jussie remains in a kind of cultural shadow, not fully gone, not fully forgiven, and not fully understood. His story is still unfolding, but the consequences of those events continue to define his legacy. It is time to reveal the one major lesson to learn from this narrative. So, what are the lessons from this scandal? Lessons far bigger than one celebrity or one courtroom outcome. First, never build your success on manufactured victimhood. Society has a deep instinct to protect people who are harmed, marginalized, or targeted. That protection is sacred. When an incident is perceived as fabricated, as the prosecution argued and the jury accepted, it doesn't just damage the person involved, it damages the credibility of real victims who already struggle to be believed. That's why the reaction was so intense. People felt the integrity of a serious issue had been violated. Second, short-term attention causes long-term destruction. If prosecutors were correct in arguing that the situation was staged to boost visibility, the case becomes a perfect example of why chasing quick fame is a trap. Attention is addictive, but it's also fleeting. And when attention becomes the goal instead of the byproduct of genuine work, people start making riskier, more desperate choices. A single moment of spotlight can cost years of career building. Third, when you lie publicly, you don't control the fall, everyone else does. One of the most brutal realities of public life is that once a narrative shifts, the person at the center no longer gets to steer it. In Jussie's case, law enforcement, the courts, the media, and the public became the ones shaping his story. The moment trust eroded, control slipped away. Fourth, your reputation is your real currency. Money can be lost and earned again. Fame can evaporate and return. But reputation, the belief people have in your integrity, is the one asset that doesn't regenerate easily. In industries like Hollywood, reputation determines whether doors open or slam shut, whether opportunities grow or die. Once it's damaged, rebuilding can take a lifetime, if it's possible at all. Fifth, fame fades, trust lasts. Fame is temporary by design. It's driven by trends, algorithms, news cycles, and public mood. Trust, on the other hand, is stable. It's built quietly, slowly, consistently, and lost in seconds. Jussie's story became a cultural cautionary tale, not because he was the first celebrity to face scandal, but because the trust people once had in him evaporated almost instantly. Sixth, the higher you climb, the more transparency matters. When you're in the public eye, every action is magnified. Every claim is scrutinized. Every inconsistency becomes a headline. The more influence you have, the more the world expects accountability, honesty, and clarity. Success doesn't protect you, it exposes you. Last but not least, one lie can erase years of hard work instantly. Whether you're an actor, a musician, a student, a leader, or just someone building a life, this is the harshest lesson of all. Decades of effort can be undone by one decision, especially a decision that undermines your integrity. In the end, Jussie's downfall wasn't just a scandal, it was a masterclass in how trust, once lost, becomes the hardest thing in the world to win back. If there's one truth this entire story exposes, it's this. Jussie's downfall wasn't caused by the incident alone. It was caused by breaking the one rule you can never violate in life. You can recover from a mistake, but you can't recover from losing people's trust. That single principle is the foundation of every career, every relationship, every opportunity. And when trust collapses, everything built on top of it collapses too, no matter how high you've climbed. Jussie's case, defined in large part by the 2021 jury verdict, finding him guilty of filing a false police report, became a cultural turning point because it illustrated how fragile credibility really is. Whether people supported him, doubted him, or felt betrayed by him, the core of the backlash centered on trust, its value, its power, and how quickly it disappears once broken. If Jussie had faced the truth early, his story might have looked very different. Ready to write your story the right way? Check out the links in the description and start building your career today.